You're on.
It is 6 o'clock, and I will call the Village of Holly Community Development Committee to order and ask for a stand for the pledge, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Ms. Bitter.
Musgrave. Here. Kinnaman.
Here.
Delaney.
Here. Here. Oh, sorry. Yes, we're all here. That's okay. I looked over that way and was staring there for the pledge even, and until I realized you were facing this way, it didn't even dawn on me the flag wasn't where it normally is. One of those kind of days.
Shall we ever do it?
No, we'll move forward.
Okay.
So we will be having a public comment time today. Normally committee meetings are not required to do that, but we will be doing that today. We have promised that we would do that, and so we have built that into the agenda, and we will get there. I had someone ask about sharing at least some of the information ahead of that, because you as the community have not seen what's actually in our packets. And so I think we'll just take a few minutes. I don't know, Mr. Walker, if you would like to go through a general synopsis of cost, square footage, just some simple things, basic overview of the funds sheet, and then read through the survey results, and I don't know if we probably need, the township proposal was placed on Facebook, so I don't know if most people have seen that, but we can maybe answer that as well.
Well, if you'd like, since you're going to go this route, I'd be happy to give an overview, but maybe you just want to continue through the attachments that were presented to the committee, starting out with a presentation by Ms. Hoist from H2A Architects, who can talk about a comparison between both buildings.
Wonderful.
And I think that will probably be a little fuller.
Sure.
And then I can fill in with survey results and such after that.
That'll be great. Thank you.
You might have to lower the mic.
That's right. There we go.
Okay, good evening. Here this evening to talk to you about those two facilities that we looked at this time.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you. Is it on?
Is it on?
So I don't think though, Josh, that's not a magnification mic, that's just a recording mic, isn't it? So she'll start to speak up.
No, it's just.
Okay.
It was working earlier.
Oh, was it? All right.
How's that, better?
Oh, much.
Okay. So we looked at two different proposals for the future offices of the village. The first one that we looked at on our report there to read through is the proposal to share space with the township at Grange Hall Road and what used to be Dawson Tire. That building has about 8,000 square feet in it. I think 8160 is about as close as we could get there. And it's currently vacant and available to move in with some renovations. The building consists of an office area and large open bays that were for vehicles. The office area is in fair condition, but it's pretty much open office. There's 2 offices there enclosed and a conference room. So it would need additional renovations in order to be appropriate for the village offices. They also need storage space, so the big garage bays could be used for storage space, but they're not the right size and shape right now. They would need some subdivision in order to divide between what would be township storage and village storage. They also would be able to eventually renovate one of the large bays to become some type of shared meeting room that the township and the village could share. It would be a lease arrangement, from what we know so far, where the village would lease space from the township, and that they would need to do these renovations in order to make it appropriate for them to move in. While the space is in fair condition, it's important to remember that the large garage bays do not have any type of appropriate heating, air conditioning system for this type of use. It was, solely for vehicles. Additionally, that also extends to the type of electrical that's in there and the type of plumbing that's in those areas. Okay, so of the 8,160 square feet over there at Dawson Tire, the village target is around 5,000 square feet. So when we were here last month, we kind of talked about the space needs assessment and looking at how much space would be appropriate for the village, and 5,000 square feet is about the target that we're looking for. There's some pros and cons as we look at that facility. Some of the pros are we certainly share some facility costs, share some parking and the cost to develop and maintain parking. The shared gathering space, again, a space that could be shared not only for usage but also in terms of cost. And then the potential for lots of expansion there, as it is a fairly large site. Some of the cons would include a little more congested area in terms of traffic and getting in and out. There's a lot more commercial development along in there that really kind of backs up the access to the site during specific times of the day. Shared space means that we have to schedule use of space. It means the conference room and the meeting room would not always be available, and they need to complete a schedule, just similar to how they do here at this building. They'd have to undertake some major renovation to utilize that space, so there'd be a high initial cost to do that. They wouldn't be gaining any equity in a lease arrangement, so the money that they put into it is not growing and is simply leasehold improvement costs by the village. At the point of writing of this report, there was no clear contract yet for the terms of the lease versus ownership or any arrangement and how that would occur. The cost to renovate the office area and the storage area, those areas that would be specific only to the village. The contractor's cost we're looking at is about $482,000. It's on your first sheet there. Now, today's bid climate is a little bit dynamic. Contractors are very busy and we see big swings in the actual bid prices. We might expect this to come in anywhere from maybe $380,000 to $630,000. So it's very large swings right now in bidding. So while we give a cost projection, you can expect 30% higher or lower than the estimate. So we compared this against the property that the village owns at Cyclone Park. There's a building there already, and that building could also be renovated for the village's use. That building contains 3,792, so basically 3,800 square feet. And there is an existing parking lot there. It's at the entrance to the park, and it's fairly easy to access. The road isn't extremely congested or busy. So some of the pros to this scenario at Cyclone Park would be, there's a high equity. The money that you're putting into that building is then your building, and so you're developing equity. Again, easy access for the staff and the public off the main street there and into the facility. The parking lot's right there next to the building. It could be a long-term location, so you've got no chance of eviction from that space. The offices and meeting spaces can be appropriately sized. You're not sharing a building with someone else, so you're not having to worry about scheduling conflicts. It revitalizes what's currently a highly underutilized building. And there is space there at that park location for future expansion and additions. On the con side, there will be extensive rehabilitation and restoration, or we could say renovation. So there is again a high initial investment, just like at the other facility. And there currently is not a large gathering space, so you need to utilize other village-owned spaces for your community meetings. The projected cost to renovate that building, contractor's cost, is $578,000. Again, you may see large swings as our construction industry is very dynamic right now, so maybe anywhere from $400,000 to $750,000. So we have the two buildings to consider there. We did provide in the report some timeline recommendations for getting the process rolling. And again, we're suggesting that this fall would be appropriate to move into a process of hiring an architect and beginning to get your plans together in order to meet your move-in date, which is projected to be May 1st of '25. So it's time to get those things rolling. We provided in the report some diagrams, which were also on these display boards. They do illustrate the portion of the two buildings that would be used by the village, kind of a peach color there for village uses. We anticipate that the township site would probably need a significant addition in order to accommodate both the township uses and the village uses. And then with the Cyclone Park, we did illustrate in the gray tone there what would be future additions if we wanted to have a meeting room space at that facility. We've just provided some floor plans that are more conceptual, just show areas for the different uses, and then also the site plans that illustrate the relationships between parking and buildings and where expansions might take place. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them. There are two versions of the report. One version illustrates contractor's costs. The other version illustrates the other soft costs that apply to a project: fees, insurance, inspections, all those types of costs that are added to a project throughout its development. Okay. Any questions? Yes.
Since you deal with this continuously with other organizations, looking at everything that has been presented to us, in your opinion, what would be your recommendation?
Well, our recommendation is to use the Cyclone Park site. You've got an existing facility there that is highly underutilized, and your investment would be in your own property, and you'd be gaining equity in your own property versus leasing at another site where you're not gaining equity and you're not taking care of an underutilized building in the same manner as you would be with reuse.
Thank you.
That's good. Thank you. Mr. Walker?
So then to drill down on the information that you requested at the last committee meeting, you asked about funding, what type of funding that the village currently has. Without borrowing any funds, we have about, looking forward into fiscal year 24-25, we've identified $1,072,012, and it's from various sources of funding. As you can see, some of it's fund balance from general fund, other is from funds that were put away for capital projects. There's some from ARPA funds. Some, originally, if you remember, council had allocated a little over $140,000 from ARPA funds towards this project. And then we have different revenue sources, whether it be from marijuana licenses or marijuana distribution from the state taxes, surplus from our MERS fund as we make movement through that grant that we received through the state of Michigan towards the Michigan Employees Retirement System. There's some money identified there. And then we have a balloon payment that's due from our 313 Broad Street property, the old fire station. So those are the funds that are readily available. And there will be additional funds that will become available in the future, we believe, as we work with additional programs with the state. And if the village council decided to, there are some low interest loan opportunities through rural development. So there's several different funding options that the village has on hand. If you recall, one of Mr. Cullis's statements or commitments that he made was that the township, if we were to go with the Grange Hall project, that they would front the money for rehabilitation and renovation of that space. I think it's important to remember, and that then our lease payment would actually be repayment of that. And so there wouldn't be an actual lease on top of that, which on the face, looks very generous, looks very good. I think the thing to remember is another conversation that Mr. Cullis has had is that in 5 to 7 years, he thinks that there will be a need to build a brand new municipal building on the Grange Hall site, somewhere between 8,000 and 10,000 square feet. And when I asked him what the village's responsibility would be with that, it would be that the village would be responsible for whatever share of the building that they occupied. So if you're talking 10,000 square foot building, you're probably talking neighborhood $5 million, and then whatever part. So, I mean, while the upfront costs first moving in looks really, really good, I just think there are some long-range thoughts that, this committee has to consider while making recommendations, and then council as a whole. So, I mean, that's pretty much the funding end of it. The existing building, as it sits right now at Grange Hall, is not large enough to house both the village office and the township office. And that's indicated on the board. Mr. Cullis actually had provided some sketches or drawings that an architect firm hired by the township completed that shows an addition. So while they would be fronting us the money to do our rehabilitation when they sold their property downtown and moved in even on a temporary basis before the construction of the new municipal building, there's this pretty sizable addition that needs to be built. Wouldn't be the village's cost, but still dollars that have to be spent. Another piece that the committee asked staff to complete was a survey. That survey was sent out as requested by the committee. There were a total of 462 responses received back from the survey. 339 of those responses were received electronically, and 123 were received hard copy. And so those mailed out surveys, the hard copy ones, were sent to water customers on the village's municipal water system that resided within the village, or were contained within the village. And so that was the totality of those. You have the survey results in your packet. I'm not sure if you want me to go through and read each of the 5 questions and list the highest response on them, or if you just want to,
Please.
well, committee, or if you want to look at them and then, I mean, they are available to the public. So everybody can have a copy of the complete packet.
I would say read the questions and then give the 3 main responses
Okay.
to each,
So number 1.
how the breakouts work.
Sure. Would you prefer the village invest money to fix up building or property they own, or spend money on a building they are leasing from someone else? A building they own, that received 293 responses. A building they lease, 83. It doesn't matter, 76. And 10 of the respondents just didn't answer that question at all. Question 2. Would you rather the offices be located in a residential park environment, Cyclone Park, or a commercial area, 4092 Grange Hall Road, formerly Dawson Tire? A, Cyclone Park, 206. B, 4092 Grange Hall Road, formerly Dawson Tire, 185. C, it doesn't matter, 61 responses, and no answer, 10. 3, would you find it beneficial to have the village offices and the township offices in the same complex located at 4092 Grange Hall Road? A, yes, 232. B, no, 132. C, it doesn't matter, 95. No answer, 3. 4, how important is non-motorized access, sidewalks, bike path to the village offices? A, very important, 184. B, not important, 114. C, it doesn't matter, 160, and no answers, 4. And 5, is it important that the village offices be centrally located within the village boundaries? A, very important, 242. B, not important, 113. C, it doesn't matter, 104. And no answers, 4. So those were the 5 questions that were sent out. The last attachment that you have in your packet, committee, is that of questions that staff developed and gave to Mr. Cullis to complete. And there were a total of 13 questions. So I don't know if you want to go in the same format or if you just want to have those available. They were posted previously on social media.
I would say, let's do the questions and then maybe a synopsis from each answer.
Okay. Well, you want me to read the synopsis, or since Mr. Cullis is here, do you want him to give a direct answer?
That's up to Mr. Cullis if he's comfortable with that.
I'm comfortable, I don't have a copy of the letter.
I mean, it doesn't matter to me, I just didn't want to, if I'm gonna do a synopsis, I didn't want to put words, use words that weren't his own. Okay, so I'll read the question and then maybe if you just want to respond.
Sure.
Can you pull the microphone up for you, please?
You can just pull the whole thing up here to the level. Maybe.
Just bend it, so bend the top. There you go.
Okay, all right, number 1. What is the exact space proposed that the village would occupy?
So the answer I supplied was Holly Township has invited the village to the table to determine these answers, assuming there is an accurate needs assessment and/or concept currently available. There's currently 9,500 square feet building on the property to be used as a starting point for office space located at 4092 Grange Hall Road. We, Holly Township, realize that the village is up against the deadline. It is our intention to work cooperatively with the village to facilitate the village's needs for space to serve their residents in the future, if that is the desire of the council.
Okay, number 2. Will the village have control of the design and rehab of the village space?
Yes, the space that the village decides upon will be theirs to design and remodel as they see fit for their personal use.
Will the village be responsible for the entire cost of construction for the village space?
Yes, the village of Holly will be responsible for the cost of construction and remodel to the space agreed upon.
4, what is the monthly cost? How long will the village pay rent lease for the space?
As the supervisor stated in his presentation to the committee, the township could extend the line of credit to the village of Holly if that was needed. That line of credit would be repaid to the township of Holly in the same manner as a lease until the payoff of that debt is complete. At that point, the Township of Holly would be happy to extend a 99-year lease at the cost of $1 per year.
Number 6, how will utilities be charged? Will we have our own water, gas, electric meter, or a percentage of the building space?
Number 5.
Number 5.
Oh, excuse me. Is there a path to ownership of the space occupied by the village?
It is the assumption of the Township of Holly that an agreement would be created and filed with the Oakland County Register of Deeds that would extend a 99-year lease to the Village of Holly for the cost of $1, thereby securing the village within the space for at least the next 99 years. Now, I do want to clarify, in the answer before I said $1 per year, I said for $1. I don't know what the legal side of that is. Does it have to be $1 every year? Can it be $1 for the whole damn lease? I don't know. Those are the details that have to be worked out when we sit down. The point is, it will be no rent, no lease charges past the cost of build out.
Returning to number 6. How will utilities be charged? Will we have our own water, gas, electric meter, or a percentage of the building space?
Once the village determined its needs, it is assumed that they would also determine how to address utilities. If the village determines that they will use 100% of the existing building, then they would be able to use the existing infrastructure and carry on utilities in the name of the Village of Holly.
Number 7. Who is responsible for maintenance, snow plowing, grass cutting, shoveling, sidewalks, putting down salt, landscaping, weeding flower beds, etc.?
This is another detail that will be determined once the Village of Holly has made a decision as to what their needs and use will be. An agreement would need to be created with the village and the township to share the expenses for grounds maintenance once the Township of Holly has moved its offices to the property. If agreed upon, the services could be provided by the village's DPW.
8. Will a cleaning service be provided, or do we hire our own?
This would be another opportunity for shared services if the village and township does share one building. If the Village of Holly takes 100% of the building, then the village would contact hire for their own cleaning services.
9. How will signage be paid for, both at the street and in the complex?
Shared space, shared signage, shared costs.
Number 10. Will the village portion be secure with only the village controlling access into our space?
Absolutely, as will Holly Township.
Number 11. Will there be shared space? How will that be invoiced for rent, utilities, maintenance?
Depending on the needs of the village office and the township, a shared space would be determined.
And 13, term of the
12.
contract?
12.
Oh, 12, boy, I keep skipping one. Who will be responsible for building repairs?
Each entity will be responsible for the maintenance and repair costs for their space. Shared space would be at a shared cost.
And number 13, term of the contract, no termination clause.
My response there was as answered in question number 4. And question number 4, the answer was the 99-year lease. I think it's important, Mr. Walker, after we've gone through those questions, the opening 2 paragraphs in this explain some of this. And if we're putting this all on the record publicly, did you want me to go ahead and read those?
Sure.
Okay. Once the property at 4092 Grange Hall was acquired by Holly Township, the township knew the opportunity for shared space. Considering the move from Carl Richards to the Village of Holly and the need for additional space for the Township of Holly, it was considered a way to serve our taxpayers and residents in a more convenient manner in one central location. Due to the informal nature of the offer presented to the committee and the lack of further clarifying meetings or conversations, we have done the best we can at this point to answer the questions proposed by the Village of Holly. Many of these questions would be better determined once a needs assessment committee meeting with Holly Township and a town hall meeting conducted to decide how the facility will be used. Question 13 is an extension of 4, which we just said.
Any questions on this part?
Brian, you mentioned insurance.
So I think, so somebody mentioned what about insurance costs, and I think insurance costs, thinking in that vein is the same, that it would be, depending on what's insured, it would be the cost of either party. So I mean, I think that's, you know, we could assume that.
Yeah. Very good.
So that's the totality of the information that's contained in your packet that you previously requested.
Very good. Thank you very much. So we will move to public comment then at this time. And the statement is, members of the public can address the committee once recognized by the chairperson. Comments are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes for items on the agenda only, please. Prior to addressing the committee, members of the public shall state their name and address for the record. Ms. Lacy.
Lori Lacy, 818 East Maple Street. I haven't been to a lot of the meetings, and I want to thank you first for sending out the survey, because some of us do not go online and get the information. So that was really nice. I want to thank everyone that was involved. I know that my opinion might not go and match with other people's, but I've always thought that it's better to have our own building on our own property that we already have. And to me, in the long run, that would also make the park better, because they'll be renovating the park also along with it, which I know the parks are very important to Holly. They are very important to me. This whole village is important to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have lived here for the last 45 years. So, anyways, I just wanted to thank you, and I hope the decision is a good one. Thank you.
Charlene.
I'm Cheryl Everly. I'm from 314 Hadley Street. And Ms. Hoist, I appreciate your comments, but first of all, one of your cons was that it was a lease. And there's no lease. There is no lease. There is no lease. Not until after everything is paid off, and then there would be $1 for 99 years. So any other talk of a lease is what I call a straw dog. A straw dog means you're throwing up something that doesn't exist because you want to scare people off or you want to have an argument. And here's some other straw dogs. That it's easier access to the park than it would be out on Grange Hall Road. Well, first of all, how many people actually even access the office in the course of the day? People are coming in for seniors and other things, but actually walking through the doors of the office, what, 10, maybe on a busy day? So traffic really isn't an issue. And if you want to talk about Maple Street, we got a new middle school coming in right over here. So every street in this area is going to be a lot busier than it is right now. Ownership, that's another straw dog. And equity, straw dog. We don't need equity. We've got buildings all over the place. We've got the buildings on Elm Street. We've got that big Taj Mahal Fire Department. We've got the police department. We've got 5 parks. We probably own a square mile of the 2.5 square miles of Holly as it is. We don't need any more equity. It doesn't matter. And what are we going to do down the road in 5 to 10 years? You're all going to be gone. You're all going to be gone. And there will be smart people sitting here, and they can figure out things. They can figure out what's going to happen at the time that we pay off the loan on this building. You don't have to worry about that. That's a straw dog. Has anybody here, anybody from the council, sat with administration and sat with people from the township to actually have a conversation? That's what negotiations are. And if you haven't even done that, then you haven't done crap, except kind of go over the same thing we've talked about. And this funding, ARPA funds. I think I stood here and said that if we didn't have a direct use for those ARPA funds, that they were going to become Mr. Walker's slush fund. So here we are. They're getting used for what he wants. Actually, it was a year ago, September 29th, that Ms. Bigger posted an ad in the paper that we were looking for somebody to come and redo our website, which would benefit all of Holly. And where did that go? Nowhere. Because now we're gonna dump every penny we've got into this crappy park that could be a park if you spent $20,000 and paid somebody to do programming in all of the parks. We could have much healthier parks. Our parks have been neglected since this man came to town. And now all of a sudden, we're all about the parks. That's just another straw dog. And anybody who's ever done any development knows that if you're gonna spend $500,000, it's gonna go a heck of a lot farther out at Dawson Tire, a building that was only, people just left 6 months ago. If you gave me $500,000 and I spent it there, I'd have a nice Taj Mahal. You give me $500,000 to spend in Cyclone Park, and you're gonna have a barely usable piece of crap. And finally, the last thing I'm gonna say is, I think this all comes down to a boondoggle. I think it's very much like when we were gonna expand the DDA down Maple Street. I think this has a lot to do with providing paved parking and paved lighted parking for Venue 111 to get them off the street. Thank you very much.
I'm Carolyn Bernard, 202 Washington Street, and I just have a couple of comments that I would hope somebody might be able to answer. The first of which is the building on Cyclone Park right now. I'm assuming or hoping that there have actually been engineers that have looked at that for structural significance, because looking at the $578,000, if that building has to be torn down and rebuilt, that's an incredibly low estimate. Second thing that was mentioned is there's no meeting space, but I noticed in the packet that there is the possibility for a future addition of about 1,500 square feet. Again, I would assume that that's something that will probably be needed sooner rather than later. So let's just add everything in up front, get it taken care of, and get those costs put together. I've actually lived in Holly for a number of years. I've seen special assessments come through. I've seen bonds come through. I was actually at a point where I was working and I had future income. I am retiring. So I want to know what this is going to cost me. What is it going to cost my husband and I? Not today. I want to know what it's going to cost us in 5 years when all of this comes due. So at the end of the day, before I jump on any bandwagon, pro, con, where we should be, where we shouldn't be, I really want to make sure that from a construction standpoint, that this has been looked at. My husband's a contractor. I work in the insurance industry and I work with contractors every single day. Also, if we're on a tight deadline, we better add in some rush fees, because this is not going to get done for that amount of money. So again, that's my comment. I just think we need to know a little bit more financially. Thank you.
Jim?
Jim Clark, 314 Hadley Street. I'd like to make 2 points. One is, in Michigan, as some of us know, the basic units of government are cities and townships. A village is simply a subdivision of the township. We pay taxes to the township. If the township owns that property, we have equity in that property. So, it's not an either or. And I just paid both my tax bills, so I'm well aware of the costs there. The other thing is, you look at Cyclone Park. I went over and checked it out, and even with a tape measure, almost 200 feet, you have a 50-foot wide easement. So nobody from Maple Street could even see the building. There is one other issue. Cyclone Park is no closer to the center of the village than the Dawson Tire property, because the village goes up to Quick Road and beyond. So if you were to measure it out Dawson Tire is probably closer to the center of the village than Cyclone Park is.
Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, thanks again. I thanked you guys last time for your transparency.
Your name and address.
I apologize. Jim Costello, 207 North Saginaw. I'll thank you guys again then. So, thank you again for the transparency, right from the top. Mr. Delaney here, right to our village staff. Everyone's been pretty transparent, and we've already mentioned the surveys and everything. So, thank you for that. You know, I think everybody's gonna have an agenda one way or the other. My agenda personally is I was sold on the Totscape area. I have second kid coming. I really want a place where you just don't have a swing, maybe more than just a swing, and that would be nice. I know others, their end goal is to dissolve the village. I think we had speakers that's their goal tonight. They'd like to dissolve the village, and I won't speak for anybody at the township, because they had not told me this specifically, but I believe that's their goal too, is to have the village become a special assessment district or what have you. Now, our last speaker mentioned what would happen if, you know, the differences of different types of government. Well, I know there's been discussions in the past. Mr. Cullis shared an article about there's been efforts by our village to become a city. Well, if that happens and there is a push again to become a city and we're tied up at one building, I think that divorce, if you will, down the road could potentially be an issue. I think also there's been talk too about linking it over to over at Grange Hall to Saginaw. And if you've never taken part in any of the programs they have over there, they do a lot. My wife, I have not been over there yet with my daughter, but my wife goes over there quite frequently and takes advantage of all their stuff. Not all of it, but quite a bit. And I think if we're cutting down green spaces to make a road, not good. I think that's it. Thank you.
Hi, Dick Russell, 512 East Maple Street, and I thank you for giving me a minute. I didn't come here to fight with anybody, and I don't really want to have a big argument. I'd like to lay out what I think and why I think it, and from there I just have to let things go the way they are. Whether it's a straw dog or not, I think we already do own the property, and we do have an equity position. And I live right near this park, and I love that park, and I could see a lot of uses for it if it was further developed. I think this would give it an opportunity to be developed. It is centrally located and accessible to residents. And I want you to know, I own property here, and I own property in Riviera Shores subdivision. I've lived both places. I can tell you that when you want to get out onto Grange Hall Road from Riviera Shores, the traffic going down to Saginaw Street is backed all the way up to that road at 4:30 in the afternoon. So the traffic is a problem, especially for older people, I think. On the other hand, I think this is a lot more accessible. This village, compared to living over there, has infrastructure already. We have sewers, we have water, we have a full-time police department as opposed to, you know, state police coming from Oak Park. And I think that's something that has to be addressed at some point in the township.
It's in the village.
They don't cover it. So,
Let's
these are just things that I have seen from living both places. And township's a wonderful place, I like it. The village has certain advantages and reasons why I think that we ought to plant ourselves right here and develop what we've got. As far as meeting space, and no one has talked about this, but if we stayed here and did this, in Crapo Park, what about the police station? The village does have a meeting space in the police station, right here in town, not that far away. So we wouldn't have to build anything else, I don't think. But those are just my ideas, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. And like I said, I don't wanna have a fight with anybody, I'm just trying to point it out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Angela?
Angela Wallace, 709 Baird Street. I just had a couple questions. Thank you for the side-by-side comparisons. I've been asking for those, and it was nice to be able to get those online and see and be able to compare those. If we don't have a clear contract, how can we make a clear recommendation tonight? If we don't have clear details, because the devil's in the details, and if I walked into any real estate and said, well, they just said that I can have this 10 feet of property or this, and it's not in writing, that's not gonna fly. So we need details in order to be able to make a clear recommendation from any standpoint. If we do move to Grange Hall Road, we still have to spend money on Cyclone Park, no matter what we do. So you have to add that money into any money that we spend. And I just heard somebody say, why? Because that building is not okay right now. And if it is allowed to deteriorate further, sorry.
Again,
Yes.
there you go.
Other, it could, we're gonna eventually have to spend more money on Cyclone Park as it is. When looking at money that we are going to spend, and I've heard, well, it's, if you're investing in the township, or if you're investing in the village, you're investing in the township, that's kind of like saying, well, just give your money to Oakland County because we're investing in ourselves, and then just put money into the state of Michigan because we're investing in ourselves, and then just put money into the federal government because we're just investing in ourselves. So you have to take that line of thinking all the way down if that's what you're going to think, which might be the way we need to look at it. I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no, I'm just saying that's the way we have to look at it. And also we do have to look at how much money the township has already spent on the farmstead, which was one place that they wanted to move to begin with. So we put a whole lot of money into that already as a township, and that is something that would have to come from Mr. Cullis. I don't have clear numbers, just thoughts that I had. And if we are going to put a road through to Saginaw, Mr. Kinman, you told me that the library would have to change its programming. We as a village nor as a township can tell the library that they need to change their programming because they use that parking lot back there to do children's programming. If we put a road through right there, our children can't be there playing, running, using green space, which the township just put out an informational packet about how important it is for children to have green space. And then in the next breath, we're trying to take green space away from them. And then it was also brought up that this is maybe parking for Kari, and I'm probably have been one of her biggest critics in the past. But I will tell you, in the last 2 years since COVID, we've had absolutely zero problems with parking. There, she has taken care of all that. There is not parking on the street. She has very much so done her due diligence as far as providing buses and transportation for her guests. And then just going to the survey, people overwhelmingly want a building they own. People overwhelmingly want Cyclone Park, but people also overwhelmingly want something that the township and the village are both in, but they don't want it to be Grange Hall Road. So that's overwhelming just looking at these statistics. It's also very important to most of the people who responded that there's non-motorized access. We have people who walk to go pay their bills. So that's something that we do have to think about as well. And people overwhelmingly want it to be located centrally within the village boundaries. And I, as Mr. Clark said, I'm not quite sure exactly where the middle part would be, but I find it hard to believe that Dawson Park is more centrally located than Cyclone. Just some questions. I don't know, I could be wrong, but I would like to be able to have those coordinates. So thank you.
Thank you.
15091 Western Valley. In all the talk of pros and cons for this building, no one's talked about the citizens and what it would do for them. And you guys govern with the power the citizens give you. You are governing with the taxpayer money, so that should be your priority. So knowing, it's not even a debate that it would be easier for taxpayers to have a one-stop shop. That's it. So that should be listened to. That should have been a pro on everything. No one has even brought up the township residents either. Township residents, a lot of them pay village water, so they have to go to the village too. But yet they weren't sent surveys, I'm sure. And I just want to make one thing clear, because this keeps getting brought up and it's just getting old and it's getting annoying. The Michigan village law is very specific on how the village can get dissolved into the township. It has to be on the ballot and it has to be voted on by the people. That is it. That's the only way. So I'm just really sick of this scheme that this is all to become part of the township. It doesn't happen like that. That's not the process. It has to be on the ballot and it would have to be voted on. And if that ever happens, then that's up to the people to decide. And while you look at the funds, there's also other things that the village needs to pay for, like a fire truck that they're going to try to get on the ballot to raise our taxes for. So these funds are not just funds for a building. They're funds that can be used for many things, and there's a long list of things. Sidewalks people complain about a lot. The fire truck, there's many things that the village needs to pay for. It's not just the one decision that's in front of you. You need to take into account every decision that costs money, and how to use your money properly. To bring up the survey, the survey was a joke. It was. I have certificates and degrees in analytics. If I turned in that survey as an assignment to a professor, I would fail. That survey was so biased, there's misinformation. I could go on and on about that survey. And political surveys are the worst for having bias in them. And it's really discouraging that we have Roe on speed dial who are trained for this kind of thing, and no one talked to them to get them to create a survey that would be unbiased and actually serve the people. So if you want to use that as guidance, you're using false information to guide you, and we're better than that. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's good. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
No? Russ Hess, 810 Howard. I agree with the young lady. As you may know, I mentioned before, I was a professor at Ferris. And if I understand this, you had a total of 460? So my question is, how many citizens are there in the village?
6,000.
Less than
6,000.
10%. And we're basing hundreds of thousands, possibly a million, with regards to the 30% over, possibly. On something of 460 people voted on, the survey is absolutely, as I said, I wrote, didn't even take a class. This thing was, and I'm not attacking the person, okay? You cannot make a decision. That's all I want to point out. I am a little concerned that, like was stated, that you're going to make a decision and we don't have any information yet. Nothing's concrete. Is it a $1 lease? Is pay up until we pay rent until we do this? I'm just hearing that village may not be a village, but will become an incorporated township. That's a crazy thing. Either we're a village or a city. we're not a township. The last thing I'd like to point out is some of the costs, and I have to ask this again, do we get 10,000 square feet in the township? Or are we only getting half that?
Okay, talk up here, please. We can consider that as a question,
Yes.
but you need to, you're speaking
You're-
to us.
To you,
Yeah.
okay, is it 5,100 square feet? Is it 9? What are we getting?
In which building?
And those take it into consideration, do we get all of that and we still have to? My understanding from the presentation so far, we still have to have a meeting room built or constructed on that site.
Meeting space.
Yeah, at either place. Where are we gonna do, well, are we gonna have, again, costs, are we gonna have to pay to rent a place? Whenever we have planning meetings or, you know, village meetings of all, you know, the various types. I think that the village has to have a bigger, everyone come together here. And let's answer questions. We don't need just 3 minutes to ask questions.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to the next page. Joe?
Joe Hutchins, 418 Thomas Street. I've lived in this town for 51 years out of my 73. I've been involved in local government since 1992, village and township. We don't have to be in a rush. The village doesn't. We still have the room at the back of the police station that served us great for years. There's a committee room in there. There's a gathering room. You look at both buildings, both buildings had Cyclone and Dawson Tire at one time housed fire trucks. They're pole buildings. So there you are on the buildings. Dawson Tire, that's 7 acres, I think, that's there. The back end of that is wetlands that can't be used. So do your homework on wetlands. I'm on village parks and township parks. And with village parks, council has been taking some of our recommendations, and we brought Waterworks Park a long ways with a lot of volunteers from the public. Look what we've done there. That's what we've been trying to concentrate on, is getting things done in parks. Cyclone is the last park. And we discussed this in parks before, that there'd be a walking trail around there if we use that for our offices and stuff like that. And like I say, we already have places we can meet. We have the old police department, and I can speak for being on township parks, because I look at parks as parks and parks. What's good for township parks is good for village parks. We have a meeting place out there that can be utilized, and we're utilizing that more now. And we brought disc golf out there and stuff like that, so more people are utilizing the parks. That's our gem out here, is we got parks and parks. And when times get tough, people can't afford to go nowhere. Where do they go? Parks. Council has done a great job of working with the Parks Board, the Village Parks Board, in supplying people with recreation and places to go and things to do. The DDA has partnered, and the Chamber of Commerce has supported village parks, and people really like our parks, and they're coming along very well. A lot better than they were 10 years ago. And like I say, we don't have to be in a hurry. We can make do with what we have. Look at this small little meeting room here. We got 3 times the space out at township parks. Welcome to township parks. We're willing to work with village parks and the village also. That's all I have to say.
Anyone else? Mr. Collis.
It's been an interesting month since I came to this meeting, this committee, and made a presentation. I can't tell you how much time I've spent answering questions that are born out of misinformation. If you go back and you look at the presentation I made, and I've watched it twice, which is 2 times more than I usually watch myself. But I watched it so that I understood exactly what I said and what I didn't say. In that presentation, I said, we are talking about opportunities. I invited the village to the table to discuss many of the things that people want answers to. How much space, how would we best use it? Let's sit down together and draw this out. And it got shifted to ownership and lease. In that presentation, I specifically said there would be no reason for us to charge rent or lease because it's owned by the taxpayers. Somebody asked the population, 6,000 in the village, 6,000 in the township. I think we're divided according to the census by 17 people. There's another, the village would have to answer this question, but there's another probably 1,500 people that use the village water that are in the township. More people that end up having to go back and forth. We made this offer, we thought it sounded like a good idea. We said there were opportunities. Nobody said we're gonna clear the whole forest. You can cut a road in 30 feet. That's not even a definite because there's 2 pieces of property in the way that it would have to be worked out. But again, if you're a visionary, it's an opportunity. That's what we talked about. I just think it's sad that we've done this. There are questions that aren't answered because we haven't been able to sit down at the table and work out the details. But for people to automatically say the devil's in the details, I can't believe how much misinformation comes up here. Am I wrong? I thought Dawson Tire was in the village of Holly. So you're telling me the police won't service that property?
I don't think anybody ever said that.
Mr. Roselle just said that the state.
No, I was talking about the township as a whole.
Yeah, he wasn't talking.
That's the outer township.
Right.
That
That's the
has-
township.
No,
wait.
it's the outer township, because the township is the whole outer village in both.
Yes.
So let me address that as the last piece. If you go back to the township meetings about 2 years ago, the state sent the township a letter because our population put us in a position where we could become a charter township. When we brought that to the board, there was no conversation about talking about taking over the village. I've never said it was a desire of mine or the township board to take over the village. I have, when asked questions, may I continue?
During time. He's completing his statement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where was it? In that meeting, it wasn't discussed. The only thing from that meeting, you can watch it on video, we talked about the fact that a charter township would give you a 7-member board. From that, we put that on the ballot and the voters said that the township should have a 7-member board. And that will happen in 2024 with the election. But other than that, if I've ever talked about it, it's because people would say, if the township was a charter township, what would happen to the village? And the answer to that is, some people said, is it becomes a special assessment district within the charter township. But there are townships, there are cities, there are villages, and there are shared spaces all over the place. If you come with us, that's wonderful. If you don't come with us, the township will still be there. I don't know what more I can say.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman. So just a little clarification. So as Mr. Cullis said, I mean, there's lots of misinformation out there, a lot of it on social media. And you know what, it's not helpful for the process whatsoever. There's been a lot of derogatory statements, not helpful to the situation whatsoever, and really counterproductive to anything we get done. One of those statements is that this is Jerry Walker's project and he wants this. Well, I think it's pretty common knowledge. Jerry Walker's contract end date is December of '24. And so any decision or any recommendation that I make doesn't play into my future, it plays into the future of the village. Now, part of my job as the village manager is to oversee the day-to-day operations of the departments. And I do that through oversight with my department heads, such as Brian, with the utilities director, or the police chief, or the fire chief, and I work in conjunction with the village clerk treasurer in the area of finance. But also part of my job as village manager is to make recommendations for the future. Now, Mr. Cullis and I, we have a good working relationship. I mean, we just do. We spent 2 hours together yesterday talking about joint projects of the village and the township. Not one conversation was made about this topic at that particular meeting, although we have talked about this topic at other meetings. So, you know, that rumor out there that the village and the township need to get along, that's hogwash. The village and the township get along better now than they have for the last 25 years. And so, you know, we're very proud of that fact. If the township has a need and they don't have the ability to fulfill that need, whether it's through DPW services, or if they need a police officer to respond to one of their public meetings because there's a disruption or an issue, there's no hesitation. It happens. So any of that talk about trouble between the township and the village, it's nonsense. The fact is, on this particular issue, Mr. Cullis and I disagree on what we think that the direction should be. He has an idea for the direction. I have an idea as the manager and looking forward into the village's future on what I think the direction should be, or what I feel is in the best interest, because like I said, I'm not gonna be here. But you know what? I have invested 13 years of my life into this place, and so I have a vested interest in that way, in wanting it to continue in the future. I mean, the discussion regarding Charter Township and what would happen in the village, Mr. Cullis has never talked about that in private, or in public meetings like he said. But as he said, people have approached him, and that discussion has come up because those same people have then come to me and said, I had this discussion with Mr. Cullis, and what's the story? And Ms. Matson's 100% correct. You know what? Dissolution doesn't occur overnight. It's a vote of the people. And so she's 100% right in that. That's not an immediate byproduct of merging the two buildings together, but could it be a first step? Maybe, who knows? Again, Jerry Walker won't be here. To answer the question about Cyclone Park, the building, 2 architects, structural architects have looked at the building. Both have said that it is rehabable, that it is, the bones are sound, but obviously if you look at it or you walk to it, it needs some work. There's no question about it. We've also had independent builder, 2 of them, come through the building and ask if it's something that, in their estimation, because that's what they do, they're structural construction people, could it be rebuilt? And the answer in both cases was yes. So that's all. I just wanted to clear up some misconceptions. There is no relationship. George Cullis and I are fine. We're good. You know what? I bought breakfast yesterday. He'll buy it next time. And so that's kind of how we operate. But I mean, as far as from your manager, if you were to ask me for what my recommendation is, I would concur with the architect. And I didn't tell her what to say because she wouldn't allow that. But, you know, I mean, to me, Cyclone Park is the answer. That's all.
Mr. Mattson.
Thank you all for the time. Ryan Mattson, 15091 Western Valley. The only concern I guess I really have, hearing some of the numbers, so the 578 for rehabbing what I assume would be the current 3,800 square feet when the needs assessment, I believe, was for nearly 5,000. So if we're rehabbing a space that's smaller, we're still gonna have to do a build out to fulfill the needs, which I imagine we would want to do it all at once the first time. New commercial real estate's typically anywhere from $170 to $200 a square foot. So you're looking at a rehab cost of what could potentially, for what should be, and that estimate, much more than $578K, especially if we do have to tear that down. Now, Mr. Walker's engineers or architects said that it is rehabable, but a brand new space at $200 a square foot, 5,000 square feet is $1 million. Mr. Walker's admission for a future 10,000 square foot building, saying it could cost $5 million in the future for long term, at 5,000 square feet with his numbers, it'd be $2.5 million. So these numbers are all over the place. Historically, in my profession in real estate, dealing with architects, they're usually lower than what the actual bids come out. I had a client get a bid for a brand new building that was 2,500 square feet at $780K. Now some of that was some water costs and things like that, and they already be at Cyclone Park, but nevertheless, it's only a 2,500 square foot building. Commercial real estate cost is incredible, incredibly high. So I just think we have a really good opportunity to utilize the township in an existing space that will need minor things, walls. There's nothing wrong with it structurally. Our current lease payment here can be put toward paying back the line of credit that the township has offered, and then the funds that are available that Mr. Walker spoke to can go to addressing some of these concerns, like the building at Cyclone Park, making that park nicer. So essentially, we can utilize those funds to expand on different things while also solving the immediate need of having to get out of here very quickly, relatively speaking, especially in rehab and new build of commercial real estate. I mean, you could be looking at not even until next year breaking ground on that project and a 12-month rehab. You know, it could be a very long, drawn-out process that gets delayed, and then we have to be out of here and that building's not ready. So all things for cause for concern. So thank you. I appreciate your time tonight.
Anyone else?
May I just respond to one thing Mr. Walker said after I sat down?
Probably not.
Okay.
Just because I don't want it to become a back and forth on that stuff, and we're kind of really giving everybody one opportunity to speak.
That's fine.
Thank you. If I see no one else, what I would like to suggest is maybe a 10-minute break. And then come back and the three of us will have some discussion. Okay?
You guys back at 7:12.
At 7:12, come back at, yep, 7:22, we'll come back. Thank you.
I mean, green light is like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
They have nothing to do with this.
That's just what yes.
I was gonna make a joke about that being too, but I
The whole thing is, they gotta put this up again. Oh, yeah, I
But but they're gonna be a million plus.
I gotta ask the wife if I can do that. I gotta go home fast. I have to push it a little bit. Kids don't sleep if I eat. That's right. I don't want to go to sleep.
Well, that's exactly what happened.
Choke right there.
It's fine.
I'm very lucky, my kid.
Structure and
After
after.
Yep. Most of the time, and at night, one bottle, put her down, walk away.
Who wants to work
11
on
hours that way.
deteriorating
Sleep.
products? It's not worth it.
So the other one comes.
How far apart are they going? Yeah, I asked her, you're welcome to step in my office any day.
No, never done.
That's exactly what I'm always
Boy, girl and boy.
Hi, Jeff. How are you? Good, how are you doing?
Quick, so we're like, all right, be quick. It was really quick.
Oh, yeah, what is
You know what's wild about that? I sat here at the budget meetings and they said.
Lining up.
That is gonna come off.
My son just turned 18.
And they recommended.
You ready? Come on over.
After it expires.
Well, that's what sitting for you. I brought the girl over to,
Some more stuff that comes up, so
Elm
just
Street.
plan to keep it.
I talked to President Campbell. I can't remember who it was. I was hoping to see him. It's my daughter.
I seen him pulling on the bike and I thought it was you when you pulled up the car right there. I was like, that is
Oh, I was doing my rounds.
We were talking about the tower lease.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, charge more?
Which one is fire?
I'm trying to turn. Well, the lease is up. and
Yes, we are.
We paid the tower.
Maybe we should all remember that.
They are going to, or you?
We are, okay, so we have to make sure that they turn off the quadrant. I thought they had to move equipment, but so we're waiting on a paper.
You know who you're working with?
LC United is, they already did, they already did put a road. It was about our getting started up there, cause getting from that from the state.
Oh, it's hard to permit on the
He
scene?
sits out there and watches on his phone.
Really? For a water tower?
Well, we have our district engineers for each,
But his department.
everywhere else is only 30 day turnaround, and she said, she's just gonna give us full inventory of the car. For 6 months, I said, that's a whole construction season.
Wow.
You know, cause you pay, they pay this spring, once weather breaks, and they give a break, or it's starting to peak season, because most places. Take the tower out.
You take the water down? Water tower out? What do you clean the inside of that too?
Well, there's doing some other repair work. Old ones were leaking, so the new one, they put up higher, it doesn't. And there's new regulations for screens and access factors.
Well, I'll tell you, I like my 90 PSI on that side of Saginaw, so none of that east side, they can't get our PSI when that goes down, okay?
And he had a, I'm sure you
Well,
know,
the reason they did that was,
long-term,
it was gonna make everything 90 PSI, but all the areas
and he made the decision ultimately.
Oh, really?
He talked to them, and was like, you're only thinking like, it was open, and she was, never opened the department.